Okay, I'm talking to Dr. Reese Halter. He's an award-winning broadcaster and author of The Incomparable Honeybee. Hi, Reese. Are you there?
I sure am.
Okay, good. I mean, the whole honeybee thing's been in the news a lot recently in the UK, and I take it in America. Um, I just wanted to ask you a few questions. Can you just give me an overview of what's going on with bees across America at the moment?
Well, it's very serious. Over the last 6 years, we've lost 10 million colonies of bees at a
Wow,
cost to the beekeepers of $2 billion, Nick.
that's
And
enormous.
to give the listeners an idea, at any one moment in time, we have 2.4 million hives working very hard to provide food
Yeah.
and clothing for 300 plus million people.
So economically, they've got a real role to play in terms of the contribution that bees make to how we live.
Oh, phenomenal. In America alone, they directly contribute over 44 billion in commerce each year. The cotton industry accounts for almost 29 billion of that. But when you think about it, all our food, at least every third bite on our plate is courtesy of the bees who pollinate everything from apples to zucchinis and almost everything in between.
And that's quite an important point, isn't it? You can't replicate that service that they provide.
No, and also the bees produce such a mega amount of honey around the globe. And honey in America, we consume over 300 million pounds. Almost half of it we have to import. And it's from drinks to lozenges to sauces.
Yeah.
It's in everything, Nick.
This isn't just US. I mean, we're just talking about the US, but it's worldwide, isn't it?
Yeah,
An issue.
the bees are a worldwide problem, and they're falling down everywhere. Numbers were released a week or so ago. Our overwinter numbers, the acceptable rate of death or attrition over winter is approximately 13%.
Wow.
And last year, the average across the nation was 22%. This year it was over 31%. And that means that every third hive is potentially carking it. And some of the death rates were in excess of 70, 80%. So there were some beekeepers who really copped it hard.
Now, in previous discussions, we've brought up this issue of the neonicotinoids. And
Yeah.
is that something that is involved in this? Is this something that is re-emerging as a problem and causing these deaths?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not only reemerging, it's colliding with several other factors to create really the perfect storm.
Okay.
Let me explain that. We have climate change, which affects when the flowers begin flowering.
Yeah.
And the wild bees, the unsung heroes, the bumblebees and the solitary bees,
Yeah.
in North America, we have over 5,000 different kinds of wild bees. In the UK, you had over 50. I'm told that that number is almost halved in the last 25 years. But those insects have to time their awakening to when the plants flower. And what we're seeing is a climate-driven mismatch where it's either warmer, and that's resulted in the plants popping out of the earth and flowering earlier, in some cases a couple weeks before the bees have awoken. And once they're ready to go and there's no flower, not only does the plant suffer because there's no cross-pollination, but there's no nectar and pollen for the bees. So that's terrible. The other thing that we're seeing, there are a vast number of introduced viruses and bacteria, and a particular mite, the varroa mite, which plugs the bees' trachea, their throat, and also sucks all their blood. That's part of the globalization with goods that have been transported around the world, and these diseases have been shared. The bees are suffering from that. But the overuse of pesticides is really the concern. We know, as you alluded, that neonicotinoids are deadly for all bees.
Yeah.
But now when we look in the hive is really what they call a biodiversity chamber. The hives now are containing at least a dozen, and in some cases 2 to 3 dozen different pesticide chemicals. When you combine all of those, that's also deadly. The real concern now, what we're seeing is that with our farming and mechanization over the last 30, 40 years, farms around the world, it's not just that they're much, much bigger. The wildland area that contains all of the different array and diversity of flowers are missing. And bees are like humans in so many different ways. Humans enjoy a variety of different foods. In fact, if you only ate Big Macs and Coca-Colas and French fries every day for a month, we know the outcome of that. It's bad news. It turns out that the bees aren't being allowed to have the wild food. It's just not there. So they're eating just a few kinds of flowers, and they're in trouble. And coupled last year with our fierce drought, the plants in the autumn that did flowered very modestly at best. And the bees, it turns out, were vastly undernourished going into the winter. And undernourished bees going into a winter, that's a cocktail for higher than normal death rates.
So what can we do now that summer's late here, spring's, we've got a bit of a mix mash of weather here, but going into the summer, what can we do to contribute and help maintain healthy bee colonies?
Bees need 2 sources of food. They need nectar, because that's where they draw their sugars, and it's the main source of energy. And they need pollen, because the pollen provides the newborn bees with proteins. Proteins build brains and healthy autoimmune systems.
Yeah.
So what we're wanting people to do is to make a bee-friendly garden by planting trees and flowers and a good variety that continue to flower during the course of the summer.
Yeah.
And I'll go over some of the plants that I suggest, but right from the get-go, please don't use any pesticides, herbicides, miticides, or fungicides. So what I'm suggesting is that each family should consider planting an apple tree, because the apple tree will provide a bounty at the end of the summer, falls well. They flower in the spring. They provide terrific pollen and nectar for the bees. Also good spring to summer food are wild roses, raspberries, and elderberries.
Yeah.
They're easy to go for, easy to do.
Lovely things.
Yeah, the asters and the milkweeds, and if you can, the fireweeds are terrific for midsummer. And as you move into August, the bergamot and the evening primrose and my favorite, sunflowers, are wonderful.
Lovely.
Color and good food. And falls well, it's sunny in the UK this summer. And if so, I suggest placing a water bowl in your garden and replenishing it each morning, because the bees, like people, get thirsty and they need water, Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, and lastly, if an infestation does occur, there's some terrific products. They're from the Indian tree Neem, Neem. The Neem-based products are all pollinator, bird, and mammal friendly.
Okay.
So all the different gardening stores will have them, and if not, just go on to Google and you'll find the Neem-based products.
Okay, we'll put a link to that on the website. That's good advice. Thank you very much, Reese. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too, Nick.
Take it easy.
Cheers.
Bye.
Right on. Bye-bye.